Welcome to the news and why it matters. I am Sarah Gonzalez. You may notice, looks a little bit different behind me. We have a brand new set and we are so excited about it.
Yeah.
Glenn, what's the top story?
Top story is how people are missing how evil we are becoming.
What is that?
Wow, you hit the ground running here in the new studios.
Yeah.
Stu.
I'm gonna go with the border. There's some updates there that are fascinating to me.
Okay, and Jason Buttrell.
The worst fighting in Israel and the Israel-Gaza border in at least 5 years. Really, really bad. Oh, and also why I am extremely pissed off at Israel right now. Netanyahu in particular.
Oh, all right. Jason, I have to say your outfit looks spectacular today.
It's been a long time getting dressed today, and I was
He
like,
shows up in a t-shirt.
strode
I'm like, Jason, can you throw on a shirt? And he's like, I don't know. I just rolled out of bed. You're lucky I'm here.
Thanks so much for dressing up for us, Jason.
I got your back.
A lot to get into. First, we want to thank our sponsor, American Financing. Glenn, I know you were a little bit hesitant to work with financing companies.
Yeah, because I feel the same way now that I did back then. The trouble is coming. Real financial trouble is coming. And as we will see here in a minute with all of the topics, it's right around the corner. And in 2007, American Financing approached me and said, hey, we'd like you to voice our commercials. And I said, not a chance in hell, because you all are screwing this country and screwing people, and it's all going to come undone. And they said, not us. We agree with you. That's why we want you to endorse us, because we listen to you and we agree with you. When the financial collapse happened, they didn't have problems. They weren't asking for a handout, and they didn't need one. And the people who had loans through them were not having problems because they work for you. They're not trying to sell you a mortgage. They're trying to find the right mortgage for you. That's a huge difference. So call them, American Financing at americanfinancing.net, americanfinancing.net.
All right, Glenn, you said people are missing how evil we're becoming.
Yeah, I'm struck by how crazy the world is this weekend, how clearly the sides are being drawn, and nobody's really noticing it. You know, if you look at Israel, okay, 700 rockets started by Hamas shooting. Israel response, they send over 700 rockets. They're blowing up children and schools and everything else. Okay, I can see that because that's typical. We're seeing it over and over and over again. People have already made their decisions. However, we have Ilhan Omar. We have, what's her name?
Rashida
Tlaib. She comes out as well. They're both supporting the Palestinians. Omar is on television this weekend saying that it shouldn't even be a Jewish state. Tlaib is out saying, you know, we have to protect our Jewish people. And that's not even really, to me, the big story on the evil. You've got Code Pink taking over the Venezuelan embassy in New York. They've had it since maybe January. As soon as the United States said Maduro is not the real president, you have to leave. All of the Maduro people left the embassy. Code Pink went in and occupied the Venezuelan embassy. Now Venezuelans, and they're all white. Here comes these Venezuelans who want them out of the embassy and want Maduro out. They're arguing for Maduro. The left is arguing for Maduro. It was example after example after example. People shouting their abortions. I know you're going to play some audio, you know, where women are just out in the street saying, I'm proud of my abortion. What the hell is happening? And how is it that so many people cannot see how bright the line is becoming?
Jason, I know this is Israel is your top story.
Well, before you go to that, go ahead, say what you're going to say.
Then I just lost my train of thought. When I was it was something else amazing. But the Israel thing that Glenn laid out is absolutely ridiculous. Especially the reaction coming from people, members of our Congress. And do we have that tweet from Ilhan Omar? I asked them to pull it. Yeah, so from Ilhan Omar, she goes, how many more protesters must be shot? Rockets must be fired, and little kids be killed until the endless cycle of violence. And the status quo of occupation, remember that for a second, and humanitarian crisis in Gaza is unsustainable. And a lot of people kind of miss this one right here, but only real justice can bring about security and lasting peace. What does she mean by only real justice? I mean, because to me, it sounds almost like she's inciting more of what's going on right now, more and more rockets being fired in a higher escalation. That is an incredibly irresponsible thing to say from a sitting member of Congress. That is absolutely insane. But for the second part, the occupation, there are no occupation troops in Gaza. There haven't been for a very, very long time. There is a blockade going on.
But that blockade is because of Iran. We're sending an Air Force carrier group to make a statement to Iran. I don't think people really understand how close we are to the edge. Every day, it seems we creep closer to every single problem, just putting more chips on the table.
Oh, and I remember what I was about to say earlier, is the real reason why, like, if you have people like Code Pink and they're going in and doing these things, like you said, there are a bunch of white people that are trying to tell Venezuelans what the real problem is. And what they usually say in unison is it's American colonialism, interventionism, like sanctions, all that stuff. That's the real reason. They have to put the spotlight on that. Because if the spotlight is over on this hand, you can't see what the real problem is, and what they don't want you to know is it's socialism. That's the real reason why everything is failing. That's why people are starving. That's why 3 million people have fled the country, and it's rivaling the same migrant crisis over in the Middle East.
We still have a problem on the border. The border problem is getting worse and worse and worse. People aren't recognizing that for what that is. That is, now we're into kidnapping. You heard the story about the little kid that was found with his name on his shoes. Did you hear about this?
No.
So there's this little boy, they found this little boy, I think he was 5, and he was in, just off the border. Everybody ran. They left this little 5-year-old boy by himself. He just had his name and his address on his shoe. That's the only reason why they knew who he was. He was obviously being used by coyotes or the drug cartel or whoever to get him across the border. They just abandoned this kid. They're kidnapping kids. They're using kids for sex trafficking. All of this stuff is happening, and we're actually sitting here debating what? What are we debating? We're talking about Barr. The mainstream media couldn't be further from the truth if they tried. This is a battle not against flesh and bone. This is about good and evil. And nobody's even talking about it.
Yeah, to your point on the border with the children, too, what they're seeing now is repeat children. Like 5-year-olds come over, they are used to get over the border and so they can claim family status. And then, that gets broken up and they go back across the border and they'll come back in with a totally different family.
And
they're like a hall pass.
Look at the other one this weekend. There was the mosque in Philadelphia. Here's this mosque in Philadelphia. We were at that mosque.
I don't know if we were at that. We were at a mosque in Philadelphia. I thought it might have been that one, but
maybe not. But here's a mosque in Philadelphia where they are reciting songs and poems about beheading infidels, about taking Jerusalem from the infidels and the dirty Jews, and the excuse is, oh well, we didn't properly vet that. That was a production.
Yeah.
And that's not like a little thing that you're like, oh, I didn't even catch that. We were talking about beheadings and
oops.
Yeah.
They had the song memorized for crying out loud.
No, and the media is not reporting it. And it will be protected by CARE, who is in bed with Rashid and Omar.
And to wrap that up, if I may, on the Israel thing, this is going to continue to happen. So 4 Israelis died in this attack. Like you said, it was 600 to 700 rockets. Absolutely insane.
It's a really inefficient rocket process they have over there.
They're going to continue, but they're getting better.
Thankfully, yeah.
One of the things that we found on this is they're getting better. Like their tunnel network, the Hamas leadership, by and large, was protected. So they're building up, they're ramping up for something much, much worse in the future. But this is going to continue to happen, and I'm so pissed off at Netanyahu and Israel for this. They always get hit on, being too strong in their response. No, they didn't respond strong enough, in my opinion. And a lot of this happens around the time when money payments are supposed to come from Qatar going into Gaza. And that money is used, facilitated through Qatar, to pay off Hamas government officials and what they call other public projects that they're doing. Now, this is getting absolutely ridiculous. Netanyahu will give in every single time. He's being extorted. He's being extorted. He's showing that terrorists can bully him into doing whatever they want for allowing these payments to go through. Well, now those payments are going through just right on schedule, just like they wanted. When is this going to stop? It's going to stop when they finally go in and root out Hamas. It's awful, but he's got to do it.
Yeah. All right, more to come when we come back.
Look at a lot of Netanyahu isn't tough off on mainstream media.
You never get that.
You know what?
He is. He's being too
They weren't going.
It's not catchy.
Before we get back into the conversation, I want to thank our sponsor, Relief Factor. Relief Factor has done wonders for me, and Glenn, I know it's done amazing things for you for your pain.
Relief Factor is the reason why I can. I painted another. In fact, I painted 2 paintings this weekend.
Really?
One for my daughter, and one I think I'm going to bring in tomorrow for the political season. But I can paint because of Relief Factor. I can use my hands where I couldn't even hold a paintbrush for very long, more than 5 minutes before Relief Factor. So it's helped me a lot.
It's crazy to me the amount of people who think that they're in constant pain and they just think that that's just going to be life forever.
I thought that was it.
It affects your life tremendously. Just every single facet of your life. Yeah. It's just you live life just completely depressed and pissed off at everyone because you're in constant pain all the time.
Yeah, I thought everything I wanted to do, I thought, I'm repeating my dad's life. My dad said, one day I'm going to retire and play golf, and he never did because he was in too much pain.
Yeah.
And I thought I'd start earlier than he did, and I thought that's it. But Relief Factor is giving it back to me.
So if you are one of those people who you're just living with constant pain and you think that that's just going to be life, try Relief Factor. You can get the 3-week quick start pack right now for $19.95. 70% of the people who buy that, they go on to keep purchasing it. It's working for the majority of people. It's working for us. It can work for you. Go to relieffactor.com or call 800-500-8384. Jason, you were saying that you were critical of Netanyahu because you thought that he was not hard enough.
Which is something you don't ever hear in the media. We were talking about that off air. They always say that it's the exact opposite, that they're heavy-handed. Netanyahu in particular, Israel when they respond. But no, as I was saying before, in my opinion, they're not going strong enough. In fact, nothing is changing. They're just enabling the status quo. I think that the harshest thing I could say about Israel geopolitically is that definitely kind of works in their favor. And this is the most harshest thing I'll ever say about Israel, ever. It will be right now.
The most harshest?
The most harshest.
Harshest.
Is
he's a writer too. He writes for a living.
Is that having Hamas in control of Gaza and having the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, and having them always there's no one for Israel to negotiate with. I think that benefits them greatly. So them enabling the status quo kind of helps that to continue indefinitely, or at least for a little bit longer. Now, that's purely opinion, so I don't know how long that'll last. I don't know if that's their intention. But they give that appearance when they're allowing these payments to go through Qatar, going to Hamas, for them to continue to do what they're doing. And when they give in constantly, go in, get it done with. Otherwise, we're going to see more and more weekends like this past weekend. Now, a lot of people have, kind of talked about what's really, or haven't really talked about at all who's really behind this. We have a special coming out pretty soon on Israel. I went to Israel, talked to a bunch of people. I talked to one former intelligence colonel, and I was like, just flat out, who is responsible for a lot of the things that we're seeing right now? And she said just right off the bat, Iran. Iran is paying people that people wouldn't think are paying, like Hamas. They facilitate payments to Hamas. There's another group called Palestinian Islamic Jihad that's pretty much fully funded by Iran, gets orders straight from Iran. There's multiple other groups, but Iran is a big culprit behind all this. One of the targeted attacks this weekend that Israel did was to one specific guy. He's a big high up on the echelon with Hamas leadership, and he is the facilitator of Iranian payments to Hamas. So that was very, very telling on, I think, who they believe is behind a lot of this. The USS Lincoln just was deployed to the Persian Gulf. They said in response to something that Iranian threats, they said either to U.S. Forces or U.S. allies and interests. And again, I think that is very, very telling as well, because you have all of this going on. You have an Iranian plot, I'm theorizing here, to stoke up tension. If we're there in the Persian Gulf, that kind of halts the other plans that they have. The grand scheme for whether it's Shia or Sunni to do anything against Israel is to envelop them overwhelmingly on multiple borders. You already have a force coming in from Gaza. You've got Hezbollah, again, another Iranian-controlled proxy. They can come down from Lebanon. Very, very dire times for Israel right now, and you're starting to see them be a lot more overt in their plans and what they want to see happen, coming out in the future. This is all things that I think could come. I mean, before I couldn't put a date on it, and I'm just like Glenn. I think I'm going to be bad on timing on this if I put an exact time on this. But we're getting close. I think we're getting close.
I think so too. I said in 2004, Iran is the head of the snake. Remember that? Iran is the head of the snake. If you want to stop terror in the Middle East, you have to pop the head of the snake, and that was my theory on why we went to Iraq. We had Afghanistan here, we had Iraq here, and we had Iran in the middle. Put the pressure on both sides and pop the head of the snake, and we failed at that. And we only gave them additional power. But that's the real demon seed in the Middle East.
I'll say too, you said you were bad on timing. I think this could be an example where these forces are bad on timing. I mean, there are a lot better presidents to try to screw with Israel than Donald Trump. I mean, I wouldn't have said that at the beginning, but I mean, this is one thing he seems to really care about. If I were thinking to myself, hey, when is a good time to screw with Israel? I'm thinking you wait until Pete Buttigieg is president or whoever the heck is president if they win. I certainly wouldn't want to take Trump on that issue. It's very popular among its base. It's probably one of the issues he's most popular with Democrats. He has some across the aisle support with some people on that. And he has shown that he does not back down in that arena. I would not want to challenge him there.
Before we move on to the United States border, Glenn, how much do you think the ignorance of history contributes to everything that's going on here? You said we don't understand the evil that's going on. We've got, Congress women talking openly about, their Palestinian loyalties. Do you think that it's just the ignorance of history here that Americans are not picking up on it?
Yeah, I think, we're looking at a whole generation that when I say Bernie Sanders went to the Soviet Union for his honeymoon, that doesn't mean anything to them. Let me give you historic context. The only other person that I know of in American history that did that was Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, once you have context in history, then you're like, oh, that's a bad thing. They don't know who the Soviet Union is. They don't know who Iran is. You're mocked by saying the 12th Imam and the caliphate. We know that caliphate is real. You don't have to believe it, but they do. We know these things to be true. We know them historically. You go back to, I was reading a book. I was up at the ranch and I have all these old books. And they're atlases from the history from 1700 to 1800, printed at the time every 10 years. And I'm reading it in the late 1800s, and I see about a guy who said he was the 12th Imam, and he had come back, and he built an army that was starting to sweep northern Africa. And one of the northern African leaders said, that's not who he is. This guy is just a bum. Go and kill him at night. And they killed him at night, and it was over. Because obviously you can't be the 12th Imam if you're dead. But they understood the caliphate. We don't. That you have to understand history because it is repeating itself.
Stu, I imagine your top story is going to be something racist about brown people.
That is where I'm going. Yes, it's true. I was fascinated by the whole border situation because now the left is openly calling it a crisis. There was an op-ed in the New York Times today that said, "Give Trump the border money he wants." the New York Times, the
Thomas Friedman's,
Wow.
that's Friedman's influence on the Times, I'll bet.
maybe, because this is the editorial board too,
Yeah.
which is pretty amazing. Now they're saying they don't want the wall, of course, but what they're saying is he needs this money because this is a legitimate crisis. It's not the same crisis that Trump is talking about, but it's a legitimate crisis. And one of the reasons there's kind of this divide of conservatives are saying, like, look, a lot of people are crossing the border and they're using asylum as a way to get access. They're just everybody who crosses the border is saying asylum because they know this is, a way to get access. They're going to go through, they're going to have at least a couple of years here, probably, until we get this thing sorted out.
But then they'll show up when they're supposed to at their hearing.
Right, of course, that always happens.
Fine.
And on the other side, the left is saying, hey, well, these are real asylum claims because the situation's really bad in Central America. Now, we know there's problems with drugs and corruption in Central and South America. This has been going on for a long time, but that has never risen to the level of asylum claims before. There's very specific types of things that you have to hit, specific hurdles you need to clear to get asylum here. And it's never been like that in Central America. So what is the new information? What's going on? What's the terrible thing? And if there is a new terrible thing that's causing hundreds of thousands of people to rush the border, why hasn't there been extensive reporting about it in the New York Times? Well, they finally came out with a story today about Honduras, and they showed how terrible things are. And the reason why all these people are flooding to our border, and the answer? MS-13, this group that we've been told over and over again has no impact, and a bunch of nobodies who do nothing.
And you're racist for even mentioning them. Now, in the article, which mentions MS-13 39 times as the main chunk of the reason why these people are fleeing, is just all their terrible crimes and all the things that are going about it. But let me take it back a little bit. Here's some of let me give you 3 quotes from the media that show you the way MS-13 has been talked about previously, when conservatives were saying, hey, these guys are a real threat and they're going to cause some problems here. Just as a quick little sampling here of quotes from the media about MS-13 that I would love to tell you about whenever you get an opportunity to put them on the screen so I can read them. And I can't. They're not there. Basically, what they were saying is they were not a big. It was not a big issue. They were saying we had the ACLU, we had the Washington Post, and I think it was Joy Reid, all saying like, look, this is a fever dream of Donald Trump. It's not a real thing. Here we go. We've seen a pattern where government officials have. We want.
Okay, here's Joy Reid. We gives a speech tonight in which he makes it sound like it's the biggest issue in the United States. The biggest threat is MS-13, a gang that nobody that doesn't watch Fox News has ever heard of. So he makes it sound like they're the biggest threat. Then we have another, I believe. We've also seen, this is ACLU, we've also seen a pattern where government officials have wrongly labeled young migrants and gang members with false and unsubstantiated claims, hyping the threat of groups like MS-13 and threatening the rights of young, innocent people. And there may be this is Trump again, as he warned again and again about the dangers posed by MS-13 members and the need for a wall to keep them out. Killings connected to the gang were plummeting in many of the areas where MS-13 had been most active. Well, that's fascinating because people are just rushing here because of MS-13. I don't understand exactly how those things can connect. They say MS-13 is not an issue when Trump talks about it, yet that is the entire issue why we're having the border crisis in the first place. And if you think it's just because, well, they're talking about Honduras and not here, here's the truth about MS-13. In America, they are responsible for a murder at the rate of 4.3 times as much as all school shootings combined in this country. They are murdering people. A lot of times they'll say, well, they're only murdering certain types of people. That's them saying that. If we were to say that, I don't know what we would be accused of. Certainly racism to start. But they're basically saying, well, they're killing lesser people and you shouldn't worry about it. Well, I do worry about it. When there's 4.3 times the amount of murders of any type of citizen here in the United States, I'm going to worry about it. And it's happening here. It is happening in Honduras as well. But we are not equipped to deal with what they're coming at us with. And one of the reasons we're not equipped to deal with MS-13 is because the media is not telling us the truth about it.
All right, back in a minute. I love the school shooting statistic. They're like, okay, so we want to take away everyone's guns. We have much more to come up next in Overtime, but if you do not have Blaze TV, you are going to miss out. Go to blazetv.com. If you use promo code NEWS, you can save $10 off of your annual subscription. We're going to talk Planned Parenthood. We've got some interesting quotes from Joe Biden from the past. It's amazing when you pull out what he has said and that the media has completely given him a free pass for. So go to blazetv.com and we will see you there.